I want to buy a copy of Bone Storm. Here's 99 cents.
Allow me to summarize the proposed transaction. You wish to purchase Bone Storm for 99 cents. Net profit to me, negative $59. Oh, please take my $59. I don't want it. It's yours.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and not that long ago, Perch and I were here on the channel. We were talking about DC Comics adding these backup stories in Infinite Frontier and upping the cover price from $4 to $5. And we speculated by the end of the year, DC would probably just stop making the backup stories and just publishing the comics at $5. And we didn't even really need to get through half the year, because in July, we're getting a 22-page spectacular Spider-Man Son of Kal-El for $5. The funny thing is it's actually an homage cover to what Siegel and Schuster had done with Superman back in the day, but it was a 64-page spectacular for 10 cents. But, what's a little bit of details? And here to talk with me about that is comic book writer, editor, also a man that does ordering for a couple of comic shops in his area. How you doing, Aaron Sparrow?
I'm doing fantastic. This I don't know if you and Perch maybe put the idea in their head. I'm going to blame you guys for this terrible business decision that DC seems to be making.
Well, we did not talk about that in a positive light. We were like, hey, they're just going to knock off the backup stories, which they'd done previously. I think they did that 5 or 6 years ago. Sometime, I think during the New 52, they did something very similar.
Listen, you're dealing with executives, so they're not going to hear your opinion on it. They're just going to hear the idea. Absorb it and think that the idea is now theirs. And they're going to say, hey, it'd be a really great idea if we charged $5 for only 22 pages of material. We'll make so much more money.
Yeah, maybe they can do a press release and, based on the groundbreaking idea from Wes from Thinking Critical and Comics Perch, we have decided to up the price. Just lay it all on us.
Yeah, that'll be how they get revenge on the channel for daring to criticize Bendis's run.
We have been a little bit critical, so just besides the fact that they're kind of jettisoning Clark Kent out of the Superman title again and replacing him with John Kent, which I don't think many people would have an issue with if he had been aged up by Bendis, who you just mentioned. This $5 cover price for 22 pages of content is extraordinary. I can't believe that we're actually here. It was only, I think it was like 40 months ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, when they were holding the line at $2.99.
Yeah, that didn't last, did it?
40% inflation.
And
I'm sorry. It's actually, 66% inflation.
It's ridiculous, especially when you're in a situation where your superstars, like Jason Fabok, are leaving the company. So you're going to charge more for less, and we're not even going to get A-list talent.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about Black Label. We were going to be paying a little bit more. They were going to be in prestige format, but it was all going to be the very best. It was going to be Snyder and Capullo. It was going to be Jeff Johns, working with Jason Fabok. It was going to be Frank Miller working with John Romita Jr. And obviously they've watered that down, and you don't even get prestige format for the most part with Black Label, and they're just importing the price over and giving you the same content. Or in some cases, if you go and read some of these titles, I mean, Action Comics is still going to have a backup story, but do you really want to pay an extra $1 for a Midnighter in Shiloh Norman backup story? Nobody wanted that in their Superman comic to begin with.
I mean, maybe Midnighter. I might be down for that, but no, it's kind of funny that you mentioned Black Label, because that was supposed to be the prestige format. It was supposed to be the very best of the best in the industry, and Kelly Sue DeConnick. So, it's one of those interesting things where it's like that kind of got derailed and is gone now, and now they're just like, screw it. We're just gonna make the regular books $4.99, and you just suck it up. Give us your money, piggies. You want your Superman? You got to give us your cash. We're not even gonna try.
It's crazy. I know that my audience is a little bit different than the wide comic book reading audience. My viewing audience seems to be a little bit more discerning, so they're not going to respond very positively to this. And a lot of them, have been saying that they're cutting down, they're kind of culling their pull list, focusing more on back issues and being much more selective with their titles. Do you see that happening, with your customers out there in California as well? Are people ready to spend $5 a pop for 15 minutes and 1/6 of an actual story?
No, I don't think that they are. The sales on Superman have tanked since Bendis ran the book into the ground. Nobody really seemed to enjoy, his work on the title, and it really suffered. And I know that they're going in a new direction by saying like, "Hey, it's going to be John Kent," but I don't know that that is enough of a change to really generate any interest. Honestly, I think that if they had just left the Superman titles alone and kept, Jurgens and Tomasi on it, who got unceremoniously kicked off when they decided, "Oh, Bendis is coming." I think the titles would be much healthier than they are right now. So I don't think that the change of cast or the change of character, I don't think that that's going to be enough. Obviously, they'll probably generate some pretty decent first issue sales as retailers jump in and think that, maybe this will be good. But I don't think it's going to be sustainable. And I think it'll drop very quickly below the current level of the title right now. I think that it's going to just be a diminishing return very, very quickly. And people aren't going to want to pay that. They're not going to want to pay that much for just 22 pages of content.
Well, and with the way that they're writing stories now, everything is so slow paced. Everything's writing for the trades or even writing for the omnibus. You don't even get a story in 2 issues or 3 issues. It's got to be 5 or 6 nowadays. So in 1 year, you get 2 or 3 stories in a title like Superman, Son of Kal-El. At $5 a pop, you're looking at $60 for the year. And you're just not getting much bang for your buck. For $60, you can buy a PlayStation game and have hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of entertainment.
Yeah, if it's something open-ended, like I'm still playing Red Dead Redemption 2. I've not completed the end game on that because I'm just having so much fun just running around and being a cowboy. So yeah, you could definitely spend it on that. You could, for that, if you're a Superman fan, for $60 you could buy 3 great Superman action figures from McFarlane Toys. You can spend your money in all kinds of ways that are more satisfying. I think comics are really pricing themselves out of the market for what they are. And if you're a kid, you're not going to get any kids to read the book. I mean, they're not even written with kids in mind anymore. So I guess that's not even their goal. But I just don't see how DC is making moves that are going to grow their business. They're trying to grow their profit margin, but I think it's going to backfire on them.
It feels like a lot of short-term answers. Like they're going for short-term money. Like a lot of people are like ready for retirement. They're like, screw it. I've only got 2 more years anyway. Just got to ride her out. It doesn't matter about the long-term health of the industry or the publisher. It's just about short-term goals so they can kind of ride the wave out. That's what it feels like.
This is kind of the problem that I foresaw when, all of these companies, these small comic book companies were purchased by these larger conglomerates and these, publicly traded companies, is you always have to have a higher and higher bottom line. And just staying the course and being successful is not enough. You always have to have growth to show the shareholders. And I don't think that the people at DC, they don't seem to have any idea of how to grow the industry. So what they're going to try to do is grow the profit margin in the short term, just like you said. That's not going to last, but maybe there are people who are just ready for their golden parachute and are just trying to ride it out and just trying to survive till the next day because they feel like the cuts are coming. So if they can just prove just show on a bottom line on a spreadsheet, like, oh, look, we made more money. Well, yeah, but how many readers did you lose? And how many will you continue to lose in the next year until you're not making money? So it is very short-term thinking. I don't think it's healthy for the industry. It's certainly not healthy for the retailers who, as I mentioned in a previous video, are no longer paying 50% of cover. They're now, only getting a 35% discount through Lunar. So the price increase is definitely going to affect them. And you know what that means? That means if they want to carry...
Aaron, I did want to mention, I did have a couple of retailers that kind of chimed in on that video, and they say they're still getting 50%. Are
they really?
Yes.
Interesting. Then I need to I need to do some I need to ask Lunar some very pointed questions then.
That's the feedback that I got regarding the 35% of cover price.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No, that's an excellent point, and maybe we're just not hitting the volume because our sales have been so depressed since coming back out of the lockdown.
You know what's crazy is there's actually substantial growth in the comic book market, but it's in 2 different places. It's in graphic novels, almost exclusively led by sales of manga, in book channels, i.e. not the direct market. And then in the direct market, there's a tremendous amount of growth. At least that's what I'm being told. That's the feedback that I'm getting, but it's not in new comics. It's in back issues. And that's the thing that DC, like, they've cut the fat to the point where you just really have a lot of diehard readers. Now there's some casuals here and there, but the core of the readership are diehard readers that are going to read comic books no matter what. And all they're doing is forcing them to not read their new comics, which are kind of substandard to begin with, because they're too expensive. Might as well go in and fill out my Superman run that I've been working on for 15 years now. I have this extra money. I can go back and buy some of these classic issues that were maybe a little bit too expensive for me to buy those and dabble in the new comic market.
Yeah, we're seeing that exact trend. Back issues are really hot, and manga is really hot, and unfortunately, people are just walking by the new comic rack. You know, it's in one of the stores. It's right up in the front. It's the first thing that you see when you come into the store, and people just breeze by it. They don't even look. They either go straight to the back issues, or they go to the action figures and the action figure cases to look at toys, because it's more bang for your buck. If you're a loose collector, you can buy most Marvel Legends for $10. Once they're out of the package, a lot of them just go for $10. So you can fill out your collection there, or you can fill out back issues. It's just people have been priced out, and I think that the only people that are still really into it are guys like you and me who've had a passion for this for a long time. But I mean, I'll tell you right now, my new comic buying is way down. I'm spending way more on crowdfunded books and back issues, filling out runs than I am on anything new, because there's not that much new that excites me. Like, I think you and I both, I think we both said on Twitter today that there was just nothing out this week that excited us, that we were looking forward to.
Maybe Way of X, but I have no faith after everything I've read in X-Men that story is going to end up in a place that I find satisfying with the character Nightcrawler. I have it in my mind. I absolutely know that they're going to botch it and they're going to do a wholesale character assassination, because that's how I feel about what's been happening on X-Men for so long. There's no confidence.
No, it just feels like every character is being completely written out of character. And it seemed like there was a plan. Like, early on, people were speculating that these weren't the real X-Men. These were like Krakoa versions of them. And early on, I think that could have been true and probably would have built to a very satisfying story if it had been done quickly. But it's just dragged on so long and that I no longer believe it. And it just doesn't seem like any of the books have any kind of consistency. Some people are writing the characters wildly out of character. Then you have other writers who are, been in the industry longer, who are trying to write the characters in character, but deal with this story that they've been handed, this overarching Krakoa plot. It's absolute chaos. And I'm just wondering, I don't know the man personally, but I'm just wondering if Jordan White is a good editor. I think that there have been videos and people are talking about how, and I mean that in the sense of, not in the technical aspect of, do you make sure that the word balloons are where they need to be and that things are spelled correctly? I mean, in the guiding creative aspect, it doesn't seem like Marvel has editors that are capable of that. It's part of their job description, and they come up with ideas and they come up with, these kind of like half-baked things that they execute poorly. And it just drives more and more people away. And I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what the answer is anymore, except that we need fresh blood in editorial in the big two. We've kind of have it in DC because they fired everybody, which I think, they had some really experienced people who didn't deserve to lose their jobs over at DC, and who I think were putting out solid work. And I don't think that the infusion of new people at DC is delivering the way that they had hoped, at least as far as the readers are concerned.
I certainly don't think the answer is charging more for what they're getting right now. I don't think $5 is the answer. I don't even think what Marvel's doing with this is the answer, where they're basically, well, our content is right. We need to borrow these content ideas rather than adapting their business model. But I don't know that anyone's going to get this right. But I mean, we already saw $6 Joker comic, and apparently it sold well. Perhaps you and I are just so out of touch with readers that they're ready to throw over $5 a pop for substandard comics that just, you're not even getting the great artists at DC anymore. Fabok's gone. We know Jock is working on another new project. Francis Manupal's working on a new project. Tony Daniel's gone. We've got Gary Frank over at Image. Brad Walker is going to be working over at Image. Like, all these guys are gone, and now we're getting, in some cases it's good art, obviously on Batman with Jorge Jimenez and a few other titles, but it's getting watered down. It feels like Marvel 2.0 again.
Yeah, I really wish that DC would take a leadership position instead of always seeming to be chasing what Marvel already tried and didn't execute well. It's basically invading the Russian front. There's an old Eddie Izzard bit where he says that Napoleon or Hitler went into Russia and got his hat handed to him. He didn't study history. He didn't look at Napoleon. It was the same idea, but he was like, "Oh, I've got a new idea." I was like, "No, it's the same idea. You can't hold it." And I feel like DC is continually chasing things that Marvel failed at, thinking that they're going to have a different result, and it's not happening. I like to see these creators branching off and doing creator-owned things. I have this hope in the back of my heart that maybe this will lead to some kind of like independent renaissance where the big two will kind of continue to shrink, but the indie comic scene will explode and we'll get more innovative ideas and new titles from these top flight creators who are no longer making the money at Marvel and DC, so they're branching out and doing their own thing. And I hope that it'll lead to a creative renaissance. But I also feel like the political climate is such that people are so terrified that they're not really willing to take that many chances. So we're not going to see things that are really kind of breaking the mold and getting people excited. I don't know. It's a very kind of sad time for the industry, and it upsets me because obviously I care a lot about it and I'd like to see it succeed and flourish.
And what's also crazy about DC Comics is the communication, I think, with customers has been awful. We knew that we were moving up towards this 5G, ended up being called Generation 5. This was Dan Didio's brainchild. And apparently he was let go and it was scrapped, but then it comes back as future state. And this is, a possible future of the DC Comics. But these things aren't going to happen. And we look over at Batman and Detective Comics, both moving towards the Magistrate. New Teen Titans Academy, certainly moving towards this Red X Teen Titans story that we got that was awful. Flash seems to be moving towards this, Wally West is a mass murderer, basically controlled by one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse story that we had that was awful. We've got Green Lantern certainly feels like it's going towards the central power battery is going to be dead, and the Lantern Corps is half of it's dead, and they're off on all the corners of the galaxy trying to survive. Superman, I've been saying all along, it's quite clear what Philip Kennedy Johnson is doing is John Kent will be Superman on Earth. Clark Kent is going to Warworld, and that is happening in very short order. So they told us this was a possible future, but it's quite clear that almost all the major titles at DC Comics right now are heading right towards Future State. Now, Future State was better than I anticipated, Aaron, but it was really bleak. It was really depressing. That is not where I want any of these DC Comics characters to go. It's completely hopeless. It's completely joyless. And that feels like the DC Comics reading experience for me right now.
You would think that they would have learned from their cinematic universe that taking it in a dark and ugly direction and taking these characters that are DC had the most, with the exception of Batman, their heroes were the brightest and the most hopeful, and and especially Superman. And it just seems
Flash.
like they just want to keep taking it in this dark direction, and it doesn't serve them well because they lose readers, they lose the core of who the characters are, and it's not that interesting to take Superman and make him like all these other dark heroes. Especially
did you read Worlds of War? Do you know what happens before we got to that story?
No, I did not.
Superman is essentially Mongrel just kills him over and over and over, and keeps bringing him back to life. Like who wants to see Clark Kent get murdered 1,000 times?
So somebody saw the Doctor Strange movie and said, "Oh, that's a good idea." Saw the ending of that and was like, "What if we did that with Superman?" This is a huge problem.
It's all edgy boys over at DC Comics now. It sucks.
Everything is so derivative too. I feel like we've got a generation of writers who haven't experienced life, who haven't gone out and done things, who aren't very well read in the sense of reading things besides comic books. So we just kind of get things rehashed again and again and again with a slightly different take. And you see that over at Marvel too, with, they can't even come up with new names for their events anymore.
World War She-Hulk, Clone Saga, my goodness.
Yeah, it's just
Heroes Reborn.
Everything old is not new again. It's just everything old is boring and retread, and I don't know. I don't know, Wes. It's really irksome. I can't. I want to say something positive so bad because I try to be a positive person, and I just feel like everything is so bleak right now with the industry.
Well, the positive is that Todd McFarlane's Spawn is still $3. He's opened up the Spawn universe, and he's bringing a ton of talent that DC Comics apparently has no use for. Greg Capullo is going to be working on Spawn. Brett Booth's going to be working on Spawn. I've heard some of the other names. They're all fantastic. If I don't think all the Spawn titles are going to be $3, but at least the main one will be.
I really wish that Wildstorm had never been sold to DC, and that it was still going. That's
Superman
still,
and the Authority. Does that even work, Aaron?
You've already got a Superman level character on that team, and
they're fighting for the complete opposite thing.
They don't mesh with Superman as a character. So, maybe there's an interesting story that could be told, but I just don't have the faith in the creative teams anymore to pull it off. It's
not even in Grant Morrison.
I don't want to say anything bad about Grant because I've loved so much of his work, but
if anybody can do it, he can do it. But I don't have faith anymore.
No, I really don't, because I think that it's one of those situations where, when you go on let's say you go on a channel that's known for being rabble rousers and things like that, or who are engaged in terrible behavior online. If you go on that channel, you might have it in your head that you're going to elevate the discourse, but what's probably going to happen is you're going to come out looking tarnished because you were part of that. Even if you just went in there and were yourself, the chance of tarnishing yourself is much larger than you elevating the discourse and bringing them up. And I think that that's kind of the same thing that will happen pairing Superman with the Authority, unless Grant really, if Grant really contrasts the methods of the Authority with the hopefulness of Superman, it might work. So I'm hopeful that that's the direction that it goes in. But like I said, the way things have gone creatively lately, I don't have the faith. I hope he proves me wrong.
Yeah, between edgy boys, $5 cover prices, and the complete bleak nature of DC Comics, like what's a DC comic reader to do, Aaron? I don't know.
You know what? Maybe I just need to start doing Darkwing Duck again and write a hopeful hero.
Well, there you go. Maybe you can show those guys over at DC how you write a real, what is it? The Duckwing Returns. You can really use what Frank Miller did in the past, and you don't have to go as far as he did.
Yeah, exactly right. We just used the name because it was a funny parody, just like the second story. It was Crisis on Infinite Darkwings. It didn't really have anything to do with the DC Crisis, but it was just a fun little play off of it and honoring kind of the comic history. Because I have such a love for the Silver Age and all these old stories that that I read as a kid, and I kind of wanted to celebrate those in the book that we were doing. But it may be time. It's time for a hopeful universe like that. It is a complete aside, but you saw that DC announced that they're doing a Justice League Unlimited miniseries, Justice League Infinite. And so I went on Twitter. I put back out the pages that Lionel and I had pitched in 2019. That never went anywhere, and I'm like, oh well, now I kind of know maybe why they didn't. Maybe this has been in the works for a long time. But if people want to go check out a hopeful take on and fun superheroes, just jump over to my Twitter. It's right there on the screen at Aaron_Sparrow, and check out the Justice League pages that I did with Lionel Castellani. Let me know what you guys think.
It's crazy. This is the state of DC Comics. Tom King in Rorschach is apparently he's writing a meta story about how bad the comic book industry is right now. Tom King, one of the worst writers, man who's lost everything as far as his creativity and ability to write good comics.
Yeah, it's congratulations. You've identified the problem that you're a huge part of.
Yeah, unfortunately, he put Frank Miller in the comic instead of himself.
Now, do you think they had to get Frank's permission for that, or do you think it was just a straight up?
I imagine they got his permission to use his likeness, but.
Yeah, it might be. You know what? Just from what I know of Frank and his kind of persona, I think he might have been like, "Oh, you can use me in the comic? Oh, you take a shot at me? Go ahead, take your best shot, Junior."
Yeah. Well, it's certainly not like Tom King has the clout or the credentials to say anything about Frank Miller and have it stick. So.
No. In the words of the Joker, he's not worried to clean the dust off of off of Frank Miller's spats.
Absolutely. So. Aaron, this will basically be our conversation. We were supposed to talk about $5 comic books. Obviously, it went in a couple of different directions, but I think it was productive. Do you have anything else you wanted to say about kind of the state of DC Comics?
I want them to be healthy, and I don't know that the will is there. It just everything kind of feels like we're in a winding down phase where everybody expects to lose their job. I think that you kind of hit on what is probably true is that there's probably just some people there that are ready to take their golden parachute, and they've just got to keep the body alive for a few more years to get there. It's really a sad state of affairs. I hope that something changes, but I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel at the moment.